Hey there guys, as you can see we have built an absolutely enormous Parrot Play Gym. So in today's video I'm going to go ahead and finalize everything. So I want to lock it into position. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of different ways that you can secure the PVC pipe on your Parrot Play Gym. So if that's something you guys are interested in seeing, make sure to stick around because that's going to be coming up right after this. Hey there guys, this is Jack over at Hi Redbird, where I am tirelessly working to find new ways to make the keeping of exotic animals and pets more exciting, more affordable, and ultimately more enjoyable. And in this instance, you could even say larger than life, because this PVC play stand is absolutely ridiculous. I had a hard time getting the camera far enough back to show the majority of it, because it's a really big play stand. Now I did design this to be very, very tall because I wanted to create a fun area for parrots up top, but I didn't want to encourage climbing down to go around on other things. So that is why this is so tall, but that means it is also a little more wobbly because there's longer lengths of PVC. Now you can see I did do some tying in braces just to keep everything nicely together. But there are a few things that you can do in order to secure this PVC so that it is more structurally sound. So the first thing you're going to want to do after you have gone ahead and pushed everything together as well as you can go ahead and use something like a rubber mallet. Now you want to make sure that you use something like a rubber mallet. You don't want to use a steel tipped hammer because using that on the PVC pipe is going to run a pretty high risk of cracking the pipe. You also want to be careful of the surface that you are on. Usually you're going to be on a hard surface. I'm doing this on a table. So if you use something like a metal hammer on a table, realistically as you are hitting it, you cause it to crack all the way down the pipe depending on how much force you are putting into it. And let's be perfectly honest, I'm putting this video together at the end of 2020. We all have more than a little bit of pent-up stress and frustration. I am pretty sure if I used a metal hammer on this, I'd be able to make the PVC explode. But obviously that's something we want to avoid. So using a rubber mallet is going to be a good option there. Now you're also going to want to be aware of the surface that you are on. If you are doing this outside, if you are doing this maybe on the grass, on dirt, on a surface that you are not as worried about, you don't need to do this step. But if you're doing it like me on your dining room table, you need to go ahead and put something down to protect the surface because you are going to be hitting this PVC stand and it will be transferring that force onto your table. So if you're doing this on a dining room table and you don't protect the surface, you will end up denting or scratching the table, and then if you live with anyone else, you will get yelled at for making a mess and destroying the furniture, and why is it always like this? And I'm not pulling from personal experience. This is a strictly hypothetical situation, but just do yourself a favor. Utilize that padding. You can use something like a throw blanket. You can use a quilted furniture mover. Anything that'll just get you a little bit of padding so you're not damaging that furniture. Now, all you're going to do is you're going to evenly apply force to all of the places that are on the same plane. Now, one thing I am going to encourage you not to do, do not sit at one joint and hammer multiple times, because if any of the others are loose, as you are hammering this one down, it could potentially be causing this one to pull up just from the force along that pipe. So what I'm going to recommend is if you're working on a pipe like this, where it's connected on two ends, evenly apply force to both of the ends. So one tap there, one tap there. Again, you don't have to throw your entire weight behind this. The goal is just to get the PVC even tighter into those fittings. Now, using a rubber mallet, you can apply force throughout this piece to the point that it is going to be reasonably sturdy for just about any type of parrot. So I'm definitely going to encourage that. And especially if you ever want to take it apart easily, if you put all of the pieces together with a rubber mallet, it won't necessarily be easy, but they all will be able to come apart in theory, pretty easily. Now, if you guys need a little bit more structure, there's one more thing that we can do. All right, guys. Now, the other option you have is to glue the PVC pipe together. Now, for the purposes of this, I am going to be using a PVC primer. Now, the good thing about a PVC primer is that when applied appropriately, it is going to pretty effectively glue your PVC together, but unlike PVC cement or PVC glue, it is not going to leave a thick bead of residue at each of the seams that your bird could potentially start chewing on and ingest. It doesn't leave anything like that. But there are a couple of things you need to keep in mind when doing this. The first one, you want to make sure that you protect your surface, but this time we need to protect against a very staining agent. The PVC primer will soak through if you utilize something like a blanket, a sheet, anything that is remotely porous. It will be able to soak through that and then potentially stain your surface. So you want to use something that is non-permeable. So here I'm using a tarp. You could use something like a plastic trash can liner, plastic sheeting. You just want something that is not going to absorb and then potentially stain underneath. You are also going to want to make sure that you are wearing gloves because this will stain your hands. And in the case of the primer that I am using, it will stain them bright purple, which is not really fun. This will also dry out your skin, so you want to make sure to avoid that. But it's really, really straightforward. All we're going to do, this can of primer has a brush built in to the lid. So all we are going to do is take it apart at every single place we want to glue it together. We are going to put glue, or primer rather, inside the fitting and then on the outside of the pipe as well. And I recommend doing the inside of the fitting first because it will hold into place. You don't have to worry about not touching a particular part of it, whereas on the outside of the pipe, obviously I don't want to try to touch it there. I can touch it along here, but there's more for me to avoid, whereas the cap, I can pretty much touch it anywhere. Now, one of the questions I can almost guarantee I am going to get is how is PVC primer going to work to secure the PVC together? And the thing is, PVC primer will glue it together pretty well because it chemically bonds the pipe together. It melts the outer layers of plastic. So as long as you melt or apply primer to the inside of the fitting and the outside of the pipe, they are going to both be lightly melted at those contact points and it will hold together nicely. So it is going to work to effectively glue your PVC together, and without using something like PVC cement, you are not going to have a thick bead of adhesive that is going to come out at each of those seams, which means there is going to be less for your bird to chew on. So it does work pretty well. So that's all I'm going to do. I'll do that to every single joint. So if you are planning on using the PVC primer to put your PVC stand together, I recommend not using the rubber mallet, at least not at first. Because if you secure everything that tightly and then try to take it apart to do the PVC primer, you will drive yourself insane trying to get those pieces apart. Trust me, I have done it. And that's why earlier in the video I did not completely put everything together with the rubber mallet. Now there are a couple of things you can also do as well. So with this spiral staircase that I have built here, you may notice that these are set at angles. Once I glue this together, those angles are not going to change, but I may decide that this top piece I want to keep mobile. So in that instance, I'm not going to apply PVC primer there. And if that's something you want to do, if you want to maintain the mobility of certain pieces, you need to just look and see where it is pivoting. So in the instance of the staircase, all I'm going to say is go piece by piece and figure out if you can still get the movement that you want, checking both the pipe and the fittings. So for example, here I'm going to start at this T fitting. If I want this top piece to rotate, you can see both of these still do. So now I'm going to go up to the next T fitting. This piece still rotates. That pipe is rotating. If I hold the pipe, I can still pivot that top piece. And if I hold this top T fitting, obviously it's not going to rotate. So I know that this join between the pipe and this elbow fitting is where I need to stop applying primer if I want that to be able to pivot. But this is really straightforward, and I do want to point out that even if you use PVC primer to put everything together, if you ever want to modify this using some of the techniques we talked about earlier, by adding couplings, by taking out length, you could still modify this. You could make changes to the PVC pipe, but this is going to make it incredibly secure. So I definitely encourage you to think about this method if you have a bird that is very, very active, or has a tendency to be a little bit destructive, because something like a macaw or an umbrella cockatoo, if it wasn't secured, they might be able to take these caps apart. I say that, but I can't even take this cap off right now. I'm going to blame it on the gloves. But you can see, even just by being hand pressed, by using a rubber mallet, you can get this reasonably strong, reasonably sturdy. So there's a couple of different ways that you guys can think about putting your PVC stand together for its completion. So if that is something that you guys found interesting, found useful, go ahead, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We do have a few more modifications we are going to be doing to this stand to finish it off, and you don't want to miss out on those. So I do want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope to see you guys next time. I need to say thank you to my Patreon patrons for helping to make these videos possible. You can find out more by visiting Hi Red Bird on Patreon or clicking the link in the description section down below if you would like more information. Thanks!